factor to have seen this emerge. Not without struggle, and still it's a struggle every day for me to, in the technical communities that I'm embedded in, to promote the ideas of thinking about the user and thinking about how people think, not how computers work. Okay, and so I wrote a book called Leonardo's Laptop that's mentioned in the description there. And the motto for that book was, the old computing is about what computers can do, the new computing is about what people can do. So that shift of attention towards the user and the design of user interfaces and the design of visual displays, because computers are very potently a visual medium. Of course, the video games and Hollywood graphics are a very popular culture way that manifests itself. And the ways in which we can make it visual for a wide range of purposes, especially for communicating complex stories, such as the one that Oksana described of Napoleon's army. That's a famous one. Let's see, I sort of feel like moving a little closer to you. How am I going to do that here? Maybe. Rather than put that on the table, I should invite you to come up a little closer, but let's see if that'll do. Take those out. Okay, without destroying too much. Okay, so just maybe that's who I am, but the way you can find me or reach me is by Twitter or follow me on Twitter. I've become very much devoted towards these social media, and that's sort of an interesting discussion that we can have as well as the role of social media in promoting these technologies. I'm pleased to represent, as Oksana mentioned, the 30-year-old. We're celebrating our anniversary this year, an interdisciplinary research community that's jointly owned by computer science and the rapidly growing information studies, College of Information Studies. There are about 40 of these kind of new interdisciplinary departments around the country, around the world, that take a more applications-oriented view that really focus on the user, medical informatics, human-computer interaction, disability issues, electronic government, privacy protection. There's a whole set of issues. And we also work with a variety of groups on campus. We're very multidisciplinary, including the wonderfully titled Maryland Institute for Technology and the Humanities, MIT. If you visit our website, you'll find 650 papers, 200 videos, about 150 projects over these years, and some 40 pieces of software, some of which I'll be highlighting in this talk. If you get interested in the topic, and sort of this is my calling card, the book Designing the User Interface, which is now in 5th edition. The first edition was 1986, so that goes back a while, so that's how I've been working on this. But I've tried to catalog the field, and for the 4th and 5th edition, you know what, we're going to turn the lights down.
Yep.
My collaborator, Catherine Plaisant, has joined me as co-author. She's worked with me for 25 years, a very happy collaboration, and that's really very satisfying. And here's, the message of that 5th edition. The 4th edition, 2004, did not mention, because it didn't exist, Facebook or Twitter. Let's see, I think this was, it's not going to stay. Let's see. Do you need this microphone?
No.
No? I don't think we need that here. Okay, so Facebook or Twitter didn't exist. Things like Wikipedia, YouTube were pretty small, and those are among the top 5 websites in the world. And so the world has gone social. If you haven't noticed, that's the main message, and that's why it was really important to make a new edition. I don't make new editions too often. I do it when the topic has changed sufficiently to make it necessary. The topics of search and visualization have gained their own chapters now, and so that's sort of an indication of the transformation of this larger topic. There's a lot of work on disability for this 5th edition. Instead of having a separate chapter on disability, which we had done before, disability access and design is integrated everywhere. Every chapter is about the design of technologies for users with various disabilities. And we're very devoted to that topic. And myself, Catherine, as well as other researchers in the lab, conduct research in this area. Design for technologies for users with visual disabilities, motor disabilities, hearing disabilities and so on, cognitive disabilities are an important topic to us, and I'm pleased that there are new journals in this area, and if you're interested, there's a lot of good work going on. A certain pride I take in the history of human-computer interaction, and that there are 5 billion users of cell phones out there. My technology friends will tell you it's all about Moore's Law, and about chip densities, and the terabits, and the gigabytes, and the megahertz that matter. But I will say that the people in my community take some credit as well, because the design of a cell phone that you could use for such a wide range of people with different cultures, different languages, and different skills is something we're very proud of. We focus on that in our conferences of how do you design for diversity, and you know, even illiterate users and people with different disabilities, cultural, linguistic, etc., etc. We also are proud that these technologies have spread so broadly that that device in people's pocket, or I see iPads on the screen, or on the tables here, have remarkable powers for those, you know, for the wide number of people who make use of them. And to me, that's a great satisfaction for which I think the community of designers gets some credit as well. The research is still rich, and these various terms, ubiquitous, pervasive, embedded, and so on, are increasingly what we think are important. So let's see, maybe before I jump into this is about the workshop. That's about me, and I still am active working with all these projects, but I'm interested in you, and just, you know, what your backgrounds are. So also, you may want to meet each other, so a little bit of introduction is also. I'm curious also about your background and technical skills, and how many have used spreadsheets? Spreadsheets is pretty much everybody. How many write formulas in spreadsheets? Oh, good. All right. How many people have had some programming experience with a programming language? How many people have built a web page or know HTML or other tools for building web pages? Okay. All right. That's really important. Now, how many have some statistics background? Another. That's a pretty large crowd. Okay. So that sounds very good. That sounds just like the right place to be. I see a mix of professional, of technical skills, which is what I'm expecting. It's not a wide range, but I can see that you're with me, so that's good. And you know, I think that you know, if I mention topics that are more complicated, slow me down, ask questions. I like the discussion. So I thought I'd start with a little visualization and overview, and you'll see that's a central theme for me, the idea of overviews of data first. So actually what I did was I went to the website which announced this course. I scraped all the text, pasted it into the Wordle.net. If you go there, you can do this too, and up comes this. So it's a simple kind of visualization. There's a lot of reasons I don't like it, but there's a lot of reasons it's a lot of fun. So the size of the words reflect the frequency of occurrence of those words in that body of text. And so if you want to know what that body of text is about, well, it's pretty clear. It's about information and visualization. Data carries out pretty well. Human-computer interaction, and it mentions various books in my bio section. And so you can see all, you know, the other words that are important there. And I find this a very clever way. Jonathan Feinberg at IBM developed this, and it's free to use, and Wordle.net is a great place to go. And so if you're doing a presentation, you know, just take the body of text, or you could do the whole conference even. You could do that for the whole conference, and it takes even a whole book. You could do War and Peace, and throw it and then you get to see something. Now, as a, you know, form, so one of the things that is pretty compelling, and it's all the color selections, there are various color palettes and layouts. You can have ones that are, you know, angular and different ways, different fonts and all kinds of things. But it's kind of appealing and engaging to the eye, which is one thing we're after. And it's informative, which is another thing we're after. It does provide some sort of representation that gives you insight to something that might be difficult to see otherwise. And that's always been the history of visual tools, whether It's microscopes or telescopes, X-ray machines. They give you insight to things that you can't ordinarily see. And that's what this is all about. That's what's so exciting to me, that we're opening up a world where the complex things that are hard to see. I ask you about where you're from and what your work is. I'd like some special glasses. You know, I sometimes speak to groups of 60 or 600, and I sort of want that special glass. I want to see, you know, where these people are from, who knows who else, where, you know, you came from the same universities, what backgrounds you have. I just want to be able to understand the world around me. And it took me, even with a room of just a dozen of us here, it took a few minutes to go through. Maybe it was nice in a social way, but if I had 1,200 people in a room, I need some way, I would like some way to get an overview and an understanding. And that's what these tools are beginning to enable people to do. To look at complex data, complex information, the world around us, and see it in ways that we never could see it before. Okay? And that's what I hope to convince you and engage you and show you the way forward. As a starter, I wrote this book with colleagues Stu Card and Jock McElnay to try to define the territory. At that time, this was a new area, and we collected 47 papers from leading papers from very diverse sources, and we wrote 60,000 words of our own. And the basic argument is that information visualization is a way of amplifying human cognition. Amplifying human cognition. So it's a way that we increase our powers for thinking, for solving problems, for understanding the world around us. And it's based on the fact that human visual skills are enormous, quite remarkable, our perceptual skills, and that within a few hundred milliseconds we can spot trends, clusters, gaps, and outliers if the design is appropriate by use of the so-called retinal properties of color, size, shape, proximity. How do I lay out the information? Oksana showed you one, I showed you another, the Wordle. Was it in harmony with your perceptual skills? Okay? And that's a design issue. And, those are the techniques we're learning to do. So there are remaining challenges. This topic is only about 20 years old. Meaningful visual display of massive data, and you may have heard the phrase of big data. Big data is the current fashionable topic, and big data comes from many sources. All the credit card transactions, all the social media statements, and all the Facebook postings, and all the genomic data, and all the data, okay? And how do we make sense of it? In the March of this year, the White House announcement and press release about their big data initiative put aside $220 million with 7 agencies participating to promote the use of big data, okay, as a transformation for research, for science, for business, for society in many ways. And I've done work much on those social media issues, but I want to tell you that in those 5 pages, the word visualization appeared, in those 3 pages, the word visualization appeared 5 times. That the central feature and its conclusion was that human visual capabilities and proper display of visual information would enable the appropriate use of these very large data resources. So we're not thinking about looking at millions and billions of anything. We want to distill it into the cogents necessary, important features. So again, Oksana's introductory example was a good one. A 1,000-page book reduced to 1 screen, and in that 1 screen, it told the story in a compelling, memorable way. Okay? And that's what we're looking for. Not every visualization will be as great as the one by Leonardo. Some of them are just a simple bar chart, but a simple bar chart, if it reveals a truth that's not apparent to the common, commonly known, it's a game changer. We had a simple case of sort of counter story I can tell of a map of the United States which showed cervical cancer rates for each state. And if you do that, this was a few years ago, West Virginia actually had a very high rate of cervical cancer. And when this was shown to the governor was quite shocked. And when he was told, and he asked, why? He says, because state clinics in West Virginia do not offer pap smear. He changed the ruling the next day. Okay? So when you present the information in a very compelling way that points out these differences, you sometimes lead to bold decisions. And that's what we're after. The goal of visualization is insight, not pictures. Okay? Say that again. The goal of visualization is insight, not pictures. Okay? That's an important principle for me. Some people are devoted to making pretty pictures, which is fine. But unless it delivers insight that's actionable, it doesn't meet my criteria. Okay? The second thing is, for me, visualizations are necessarily interactive. I'm not talking about a bar chart. Bar charts are great. Scattergrams are great. Maps are great. But I'm talking about an interactive display where the user has control through sliders and bars and other ways of manipulating data so that they can explore their hypotheses and try things out and see for themselves. Okay? That's the goal. Interactive exploration. I liken it, there's two parts to visualization. There's sort of the engine, which is the display, and then there's a control panel, which is the driver's wheel. If you don't have both, you're not going anywhere. And for me, it's the interactive control panel. That's half of the discussion that I want to make. Okay? And the second point is, the third point is process models for discovery. You don't just look at the data and make a discovery. There's a sequence of things you have to do. You know, it's just like you don't just look at the pot of hot water and get tea. You have to boil the water and get the tea bag and pour the tea and put in the sugar or whatever you do. There's a series of steps you have to do. Every scientific process has, you know, a series of steps. What are the processes for taking a look at data? How do we start? Okay? And it starts, of course, just by cleaning up the data and understanding the data. So when I get a spreadsheet or someone shows up in my office, I want to look at it. Now, you know, when you do that, the first thing you're going to find is errors in that data. The majority of data sets I get in my office, I'll show you some of these, have errors that the users have been looking at, have been analyzing it with SQL and statistical methods for months and longer, and no idea of the kind of errors that were in there. One quick glance at a good visual display shows them things. So, for example, I think I have this later, but 6,300 admissions to an emergency room in the month of January. Okay, and they're trying to analyze the average age of those who are admitted and those who are discharged, the men and the women, those with insurance and those without insurance. And little do they know that there were 8 of those patients who were 999 years old. Okay? And they were busily doing their statistics blindly. So statistics are important. We want to do statistics. But trying to do statistics without visualization is like driving with your eyes closed. It's possible, but it's pretty dangerous. Okay? Another time, I get a year's worth of data, time series data, no April, and they had no idea. Other time, 1,400 rows of data, they did not realize that 81 of those rows were exact copies of another 81 rows. Okay, just you know, over-enthusiastic cut and paste. And so those things are more prevalent than we dare believe, but that's what's really happening, which is why I become